I never imagined that the woman I married, the mother of my children, could look at her choices and justify betrayal with words like, "I needed to discover myself." Yet there she was standing in our living room, voice trembling, trying to make her infidelity sound like a journey of self-realization. Her name is Sarah, my wife of 9 years, mother of our 2 kids. And the truth? Her self-discovery came at the cost of my trust, my peace, and the stability of our family. I am David. I have always believed in family, in loyalty, in the quiet strength that keeps a home together. We met young, fell in love, and built a life that was simple but filled with love, or so I thought. The cracks started small, almost invisible. Late nights at work, unexplained texts, subtle emotional withdrawal. I dismissed them, told myself that love requires patience, that marriage isn't always glamorous. But one afternoon, I stumbled onto a thread of messages. Messages between Sarah and a man she claimed she barely knew. But the words were intimate, calculated, revealing a pattern. It hit me like a punch. She had been planning this for months, hiding her intentions behind smiles, whispered excuses, and fake affection. I went home that night and watched her interact with the kids, saw the effortless way she played the role of a devoted mother, and realized the depth of her duplicity. How could someone live 2 lives, betray a partner, and still expect the world to understand? I didn't confront her immediately. I had to think, strategize, protect the children first. Anger surged, but I channeled it into clarity. Betrayal is like a fire. If handled recklessly, it consumes everything in its path. I refused to let it consume my kids, my home, or my dignity. I began quietly documenting, recording evidence, mapping the timeline of her decisions. Every lie, every meeting, every late-night excuse. Everything would eventually surface. And when it did, there would be no hiding. That night, she tried to kiss me, tried to normalize what she had done, to make it seem like an emotional lapse rather than a conscious choice. I pulled away. "Sarah," I said, voice low but firm, "you have a lot to explain, and actions speak louder than words." She looked startled, not used to me holding firm, not used to seeing the man she took for granted reclaim his authority. She didn't know it yet, but the days ahead would not favor her excuses. The following days were a delicate balancing act. I made sure the kids' routines were unaffected, their lives as normal as possible. I never let them see my anger, my heartbreak, or the meticulous way I was piecing together Sarah's betrayal. She, on the other hand, acted as if nothing had happened, moving through the house with a casual ease, thinking I was oblivious. But I wasn't. Every glance, every misplaced word, every subtle attempt at manipulation was noted, filed, and stored in my mind. I began confronting small inconsistencies. Questions about where she had been, phone logs, receipts she couldn't explain. Her responses were shaky, defensive, sometimes arrogant, claiming she was just exploring herself, or finding what she needed. The audacity of it made my blood boil. How could someone betray the foundation of a family, then frame it as personal growth? The anger was there, simmering under control, but my focus remained on the children. They were innocent, unaware of the full storm brewing around them. Yet their mother's choices would soon ripple through every part of their lives. One evening, I called Sarah into the living room. The kids were at their grandparents' for the night. I had gathered everything: screenshots, messages, emails, dates, and even photographs. I placed the folder on the table and simply said, "Explain this." She froze, her confident facade cracking. Her excuses faltered, her words stumbled, and I watched her realize for the first time that there were consequences she could not control or manipulate away. I didn't yell, I didn't beg, and I didn't plead. I let the evidence speak for itself. Each file, each message, each image was a mirror of her actions, reflecting back her choices in stark, undeniable clarity. She had been careless, thinking that selfish desires could exist without accountability. She had assumed loyalty and love were constants that could be bent to her convenience. But the truth was about to strike with precision. I made a decision then, a hard one, for the sake of the children. They would stay with me, their father, while she faced the fallout alone. She needed to understand that choices have consequences, that betrayal cannot coexist with parental responsibility, and that her actions had real impacts on the people she claimed to love. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, about reclaiming stability, about making sure the children remained protected while she faced the full weight of her decisions. Sarah's realization hit her slowly. At first, there was disbelief, followed by panic, and finally shame. She saw what she had done through my eyes, through the evidence I had compiled, and there was no turning back. I didn't gloat, didn't mock, didn't shout. I simply stood firm, letting the weight of her actions sink in. For months, she had acted as if her desires were above responsibility, as if our life and the children's stability were secondary to her whims. Now, she faced the reality she had carefully avoided. I arranged for a temporary custody agreement, ensuring the kids remained safe, nurtured, and emotionally supported. Each day, I watched them play, laugh, and live in a home unmarred by betrayal. Even as their mother struggled with the consequences of her choices, she reached out, trying to manipulate, trying to explain, trying to reclaim control. But I had already established a boundary she could not cross. Her words, her pleas, were powerless against the proof she had left behind. There was a clarity I hadn't felt in months. The anger and hurt were still there, but they had transformed into resolve. I had acted decisively, protected my children, and exposed betrayal for what it was. Sarah had believed that discovering herself was worth any cost, but now she understood that actions have consequences. Her self-centered justification could not erase the impact of her choices, nor could it shield her from the fallout she now faced alone. In the quiet moments, I reflected on the lessons this ordeal had taught me. Trust, once broken, cannot be casually rebuilt. Loyalty and responsibility are not abstract ideals. They are tangible, lived experiences, and when disregarded, they demand accountability. I had taken the kids, yes, but more than that, I had reclaimed control over my life, my home, and my peace of mind. And Sarah? She would have to face the truth of her decisions every single day, knowing that the life she had jeopardized could not be easily restored. By the time this chapter of our lives closed, I had emerged stronger, more aware, and unwavering in my principles. Betrayal had come, but I had met it with strategy, calm, and clarity. The children were safe, the home was stable, and justice, quiet, inevitable, and unshakable, had been served. Sarah had her freedom, but it was freedom shadowed by consequence. And that, I realized, was the only justice that truly mattered.